How about me telling you that deep in the heart of southern Africa lied a city that was built from millions of stones without a mortar, a great city that controlled a huge network and accumulated vast wealth through good. For many centuries, outsiders refused to believe that Africans built it. They sought for foreign explanations, yet the truth was hidden in plain sight. This is the story of the Great Zimbabwe. It rise from being a regional settlement to being the center of a great kingdom, its influence across southern Africa and the painful circumstance that led to its decline. Stay tuned as we will soon understand why the Great Zimbabwe deserves a place when discussing about greatest civilizations in world history. Long before the emergence of the Great Zimbabwe, several communities speaking Shona languages occupied the Zimbabwean plateau. This community cultivated millets and sorghum, they reared cattle and worked iron. Now, as generations passed, they accumulated wealth, their trade routes expanded, and leadership structures evolved. These developments became the building blocks for state formation. The environment also played an important role, yeah. The plateau made provision for a fertile land and granted easy access to rivers. Nearby regions were enriched with gold deposits. Communities that could organize labor and protect trade had advantages over their neighbors. As centuries passed, social classification increased. Wealth was increasingly measured in cattle ownership and control over exchange networks. Political authority grew beyond kinship groups. But one settlement surpassed all others. It constructed monumental stone architecture unlike anything else in the region, and its influence stretched from the interior of Africa to the shores of the Indian Ocean. From archaeological evidence, it suffices to say that the Great Zimbabwe began developing around the 11th century. At first, it looked like one center among many. Its strategic location was an advantage. Merchants who moved valuable resources towards the coast relied on established routes. Gold from the inland areas entered regional exchange systems. The Great Zimbabwe increasingly positioned itself at the center of all these networks. Political leadership held onto power. Religious authorities and kingships became intertwined. The elites demonstrated status through access to imported goods and control over cattle. The settlements became expanded. Builders used locally available granites to create durable structures. Unlike many earlier communities, the Great Zimbabwe left behind architecture that is still a wonder to visitors even today. What transformed these growing settlements into one of Africa's most remarkable urban centers? The answer simply lies in gold. Gold changed everything. The demand for African gold connected inland societies to the wider Indian Ocean. Through intermediary networks, traders exchanged local resources for foreign goods. Archaeologists have discovered imported ceramics and glass beads at the Great Zimbabwe. These findings revealed participation in long-distance exchange systems. Trade was not simply about wealth. Trade reshaped politics. Leaders who controlled trade gained prestige. They were rewarded with allies and reinforced authority. Now, imagine merchants arriving with exotic goods from distant lands. Imagine the conversations, negotiations, and alliances that emerged from these interactions. The Great Zimbabwe was not isolated, it was globally connected within the context of the medieval world. Perhaps, the most striking feature of the Great Zimbabwe is its architecture. Builders shaped granite blocks and stacked them without mortar. The resulting walls remain among the most impressive achievements of pre-colonial sub-Saharan Africa. The hill complex likely served ceremonial and political purposes. The Great Enclosure, with its towering walls and mysterious conical structure, reflected elite authority. Valley settlements accommodated broader populations. Construction required planning, labor organization, and technical expertise. These monuments were statements of power. Yet, the magnificence of this structure, one question continues to puzzle historians. What exactly happened inside these walls? Daily life extended far beyond kings and monuments. Farmers cultivated crops situated to local conditions. Herders cared for cattle that represented wealth and status. Artisans crafted pottery, metalworks, ornaments, and symbolic objects. Spiritual beliefs shaped society. Ancestors played important roles in communal identity. Leadership carried sacred responsibilities. Among the most famous artifacts associated with the Great Zimbabwe are the soapstone beds. Their precise meaning remains debated, but their cultural significance endures. The city was alive with activities, markets, ceremonies, family life, and political gathering. By the 14th century, the Great Zimbabwe stood at the center of a powerful state. The rulers of the Great Zimbabwe exercised influence across extensive territories. Tribal relationships strengthened elite control. Trade reinforced prosperity. Population estimates vary, but scholars generally agree that the Great Zimbabwe supported thousands of inhabitants through its peak. The kingdom's success reflected effective adaptation to regional conditions. It integrated agriculture, trade, political organization, and symbolic authority. Yet, history teaches a difficult lesson. No civilization remains dominant forever. Now, why did the Great Zimbabwe decline? Scholars propose several explanations. Environmental pressures may have strained local resources. Expanding populations required increasing amounts of wood, grazing land, and agricultural production. Trade patterns may have shifted. Competing centers emerged. Political fragmentation may have weakened centralized authority. Importantly, the decline did not mean disappearance. People only adapted. Power just relocated. By approximately the 15th century, the Great Zimbabwe had lost its status as the dominant capital. Successor states carried forward aspects of its political and cultural tradition. The city fell silent, but its legacy endured. Centuries later, European observers encountered the ruins. Rather than acknowledging African achievements, many promoted alternative explanations involving foreign builders. These claims reflected racial prejudice rather than evidence. Archaeological research eventually demonstrated that the Great Zimbabwe was indeed the product of African ingenuity. Correcting these misconceptions remains essential. Historical narratives influence identity, education, and collective memory. The Great Zimbabwe reminds us that Africa's past is rich, dynamic, and globally connected. Its people built monumental architecture, they engaged in international trade, they developed complex political systems, and enduring cultural traditions. The ruins stand today not merely as stones from a distant age, but as symbols of resilience and achievement. As we reflect on the Great Zimbabwe, perhaps the most important lesson is this: history becomes stronger when all civilizations receive the recognition they deserve. If you enjoyed this documentary, subscribe for more untold stories from African history. The past is never truly gone. It continues to shape our understanding of who we are and where we come from.